Right, we are back here today, and it's just us two, and that's all right, because we're doing this a little different today. We're not actually going live on YouTube. We're recording this on my laptop in preparation for taking the show on the road September 16th. We're traveling to Maple Grove Raceway, and we're going to do a podcast there with Follow a Dream drag race team, Jay Blake, and I got to give my wife a shout out. It was only because of her and her trip to Cape Cod and her contact up there with a family friend of her first husband that we sort of got our foot in the door doing that. So she gets a little shout out.
Yeah.
And because of that, she'll share, I'm going to pay her 50% commission on everything we make that day, which is a big fat zero. But anyway, she deserves a little bit of credit for that.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't be doing this at Maple Grove if she hadn't opened her mouth and told her about the podcast.
Yeah, that should be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, never was at Maple Grove.
No,
never.
me either. And we do have, a bunch of guest possibles, like in the wings.
We do.
Ones that say they definitely want to be on. We just want to have to
figure out a date.
And some that are like, well, yeah, I want to do it, but so there's a couple of them that we're still working on.
And to be perfectly honest, this today is episode 25, and we figured out basically what we're gonna do today is spend 2-3 minutes rehashing, going back and remembering our guests. And out of those 25, we've had guests in 18 of those 25, which is probably about 17 more than we expected when we decided we're gonna do this. So and they all had their own knowledge base. We had fun with all of them. We learned a lot from all of them.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a guest, it simply requires you to say, I want to be on, and pick a Friday.
That easy. And the guests that we've had, fantastic. I would have never, ever thought.
Oh, no. And we didn't, a few of them we know fairly well. A lot of them we never talked to in person until they came in the basement.
Yeah, right.
Which is really weird.
Yeah.
But they all did great, and even the ones we know sort of found out a lot lot about that we didn't know.
And we've progressed. So
we
So in the beginning we were sitting on the couch, right?
No, we actually were around a table.
Oh, that's right. We had a table,
but it was over there.
Yeah,
it's not here.
A tablecloth and over
we had a backdrop
table. Yeah, then a backdrop came in.
Yep.
Right, and then we took suggestions from the audience. It's like, well, you should be near the bar since it's called the Retro Bar, because you really couldn't tell it was
a fine suggestion.
I mean, we could see the bar very plainly where we were at, but nobody else could. So we progressed in front of the bar,
still with the table,
and then there was more suggestions come behind the bar, and so it was.
It took us till about episode. I think the first episode when we were behind the bar was 17. I think it was Elizabeth from Cloister.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Was our first trip where we and honestly the behind the bar thing still wouldn't happen if Paul wouldn't have brought bar stools.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that was really the sticking factor from the get-go. I didn't have no stools, so if we were behind the bar, we were going to have to stand, and I would have been all right with that, but I didn't want to make our guests stand the whole time. But anyway, we're here.
And we always take suggestions and kind of mull it over, and some suggestions take a little while for Kelly to catch on to. But
only weird ones from him and my wife. The ones from the audience, I'm all right with.
Yes, because the camera itself was kind of, as you can't see that, but it looks very good now. It's on a stand.
It's professional.
But it wasn't quite so professional in the beginning.
No, but it was behind the scenes. It didn't matter.
It took it took me to make a long stick and a stand for him to say that looks like crap, and we need to get
so basically I had to figure something out to shut him up.
Yeah, that was it. So that worked. See, Sharon and I worked on that.
All right, well, I guess we better get going on what we're going to do here. Episode 1 was just me and Paul introducing ourselves, so we don't need to talk about that. I'll let Paul introduce episode 2, our first guest ever.
Yeah, so Heather Smith. Fantastic guest. She was very passionate about coming on.
Yes.
And talking about mental health.
Yeah.
And that is huge.
Yeah.
Especially in, in all ages, but especially in the youth right now.
Right.
And then you had the pandemic hit and everybody kind of stuck at home, and that put a weird twist to mental health and the services that are out there and how it affects you. And so that was...
Yeah, it was eye-opening to me because I've never really dealt very close with anything like that. But she offered a lot of information, and particularly a lot of our first couple guests. The best thing about them is they introduced the whole issue of stuff that I never dealt with, and they also, to the audience, sort of gave some, where do you go for help? How do you, rather than sweeping it under the rug and pretending it's not happening, where do you go get help? And and she'll forever be known as the first guest ever on the Retro Bar podcast.
And it was very good because she, it wasn't just where do you get help. It was, it's a struggle that it's not like getting a cut.
Right.
It heals and goes away. Right. It's all good.
It's
something
lingering.
Something you're always,
I won't say
struggle with, but it's something you have to manage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're living, if you have some and then it passes down through your family, that's a whole nother issue, which, she did touch on a little bit with her family and how it affected her family. And
it was a good start. It was a little bit of a topic that needs to be discussed, but not, it wasn't a light topic. But we're not here. It don't matter what topic you bring.
But she was very passionate.
She jumped at the chance, and honestly, maybe it's all because of her that the rest of the people decided, hey, maybe I'll do this too. If she wouldn't have did that, we still might just be sitting here ourselves. So thanks to Heather.
Yeah.
Then we moved on to Roberta McFarland, and you can tell a little bit about her.
And Roberta, she, her 8-year-old daughter, autistic.
Yeah.
So she talked about what life looks like, bringing up a child with autism.
Right.
How that works at home, how that works at school, what triggers some things, and how to calm that down. And once again, resources on how to get support for that.
Yeah.
And she did have a lot of good support and a lot of information there that I didn't realize that was out there. I never dealt close with that kind of issue. And but again, not only did she discuss her life and how it has to work, but suggested where people can go and if they're dealing with the same type of thing. And not everybody knows that. So no, and she talked about the school and how she was very happy with how the Ephrata School District deals with autistic kids.
Right.
And, they when I was in school working there, that was a big part of it for me, because sometimes they would act out to the point where they just needed some basic help.
Right.
Especially if they, say, eloped, which is running away from school. They held them out town and they ran away from school.
I thought you meant they went and got married.
Well, that's what they call it in school. When they elope. I don't know that Roberta had them issues.
I would have said escape.
I don't know that Roberta had them issues, but sometimes and it could go for any kid for that matter. But there was several times where they would call and say, hey, this kid just ran out the back door in elementary. And absolutely, we would all, rally around and let's go find them. And get them back to where they're safe again.
Yeah.
That was good.
And again, as a parent, that's a tough road to hoe there. I mean, being a parent of kids without any issues isn't always the easiest.
Yes.
And then you throw that in there, I gotta give credit to all those parents who have any kind of issues like that. The more help they can get, the better, really. Yeah. But and then we had episode 6, Candice Reynolds, and she talked about foster care, and she works for Bethany Children's Services, I think it was called. But yeah, she explained sort of how, what gets a kid into foster care.
The difference between fostering and adoption.
the parenting factors that maybe come into play, that you get your child taken from you, and then the factors that if you are a child that you're in a group home or something, how do you get placed with a family? Again, something I never dealt with, something I didn't know anything about. That's why I say those first three were very informative on a lot of problems that not a lot of people deal with or know about. And so they, it was good to have them on and, sort of show the audience what goes on in these types of situations. I will say those first couple, view-wise, they don't have a lot of views, and it has nothing to do with the fact that the guest isn't interesting. I think it was because we started out saving them on Facebook and just dumping them on YouTube, and so the YouTube views are not what some of the more recent ones are. But if you ever get a chance and you haven't watched them, again, just go to our YouTube channel, which is the Retro Bar Podcast, and you can watch any of these videos at any time. They're in a library there, and it's really the only thing on that YouTube channel. Like, I don't stick anything else on there, so it's strictly the videos.
Including the independence.
Including the day I felt I needed to do a civil duty and read the Declaration of Independence on Independence Day. I was bored.
Yeah, it was appropriate.
I myself never read it, so I thought, hey, I'll read this, and maybe it'll, maybe some kid out there will become interested in it.
But nobody did. Well, what you wouldn't find on there would be the Amish.
No, Ruchi Revelator.
That's
it. I read it in normal English. It was not Pennsylvania Dutch accent.
And that wouldn't be part of any of this, though. That's
no. No. Maybe someday, if we don't have a guest, Paul can interview the Ruchi Revelator. You don't wish that in here. All right, episode 8. We're going to skip to 8 because, again, 7 was me and Paul interviewing Alexa. So we don't need to really talk about that. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Episode 8, things lighten up to a degree. I mean, the reason of the episode was a very sad situation. Dean Pierce came on with some poor man's beer, some Dutch country soft pretzels, and it was all for passing along the fact that they were running a benefit for a young man that was killed in a car accident from Waynesboro, I think. Yeah. And his dad, I forget his first name, Benishoff I should have written it down here, but anyway, they had a benefit at Poor Man's to raise money for the young man's family to have a memorial fund, a scholarship fund. And his dad, the young man's dad, I think is part owner or manager at the Dutch Country Soft Pretzels. Yeah. So they tied it together. They brewed a beer with putting pretzels in the brew. And but Dean came on. Dean's dad actually came along with him. And so we actually did. It was the only time where we did. He brought the dad of the young man on the phone.
Yes.
And so we did get to talk to him via FaceTime on the podcast. Yeah. And then, the lighter side of that was we got to drink beer and eat soft pretzels. And it wasn't all sad. And, it was for a good cause, an unfortunate thing. But that was, we got to eat food. And if you are a guest, you're always welcome to bring food and drink. That's well, your choice. So anyway, that was episode 8. And I'll let Paul introduce number 9 because it's with the police force.
Yeah. Sergeant Matt Randolph was on, and he was very informative of.
He came in full uniform.
Yeah, full uniform.
I bet that had the neighbors talking.
Yeah. So it wasn't the first time the cops were here then?
It was. It was the only time the cops were here. I learned my lesson quick.
Yeah, he was very informative on police practices and I'm sure there would have been a lot more to talk about there. We definitely ran out of time.
Yeah. Well, and that's true about every guest we had. Even though I did notice as I looked through the time length of these, we started out and they were in the 50-ish minute, 45 to 50 minute, and now some of our recent ones are like an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah. Because there's so much to talk about. Everybody has a story.
Yeah.
And he was explaining the procedures of the police department in so many different areas. How you become a police officer,
right.
like how do you move up in ranks, and he had a lot of good information. The different areas that you go to when you're in the police department, you can specialize in different areas.
Right. And, I had a ton of questions, regarding technology and how in today's world, if, can somebody incriminate you by like manipulating a video or a picture? And he explained how that, how experts can determine whether that's been done or not, which is a good thing. But yeah, he had a lot of, again, we ran out of time. I could ask him 100 questions. Paul sort of, being an ex-cop, he knew a lot of
some of the answers.
But even that technology has probably changed in the years he's been out of here.
Absolutely.
So
that was a great.
That was good, and he was in full uniform, armed.
So we behaved.
We behaved. Yeah.
There was no alcohol.
No, we didn't drink. We didn't eat. We sat still. We didn't joke much. And then we moved on to number 11 because again, number 10 was Paul was on vacation, and I had Alexa play trivia. And there's only one thing I will mention about that is if I found out that day, if you ask Alexa what a word means in another language, and in my case it was a word from Germany, Alexa all of a sudden changed her accent to speak like a German lady. And it was way sexier than her normal American voice. In fact, I asked her the same question a couple times just to hear that hear that German accent. But anyway, other than that, it was very uneventful. Episode 11, we had a young woman, Christina Deal, come on, and she was another. The first couple people we sort of knew. Christina, I never met in person before she came into the basement. She was an author. Well, she's a realtor first and foremost, and then she wrote a book. And Paul will show the book, and explain a little bit about who she was.
Yeah. She was explained how she likes to empower young women,
right,
and gaining their worth as far as money,
right, without depending on a husband,
right, without and to be financially sound at a very young age,
right,
and that's what her book, explains.
Yeah, and that book is for sale on Amazon.
Yeah.
She donated it. No, actually, I bought that. She didn't. Well, actually, she would have. I think when she was on, the book actually hadn't.
No, that's
been
right.
Published
It
was. It was going to be published in like the next week or something.
Yeah.
So she, it wasn't like she wouldn't have given us one. But,
no, right. I bought one too.
Yeah, we each
really
bought her one, and that's how she stays financially stable. Men like us buying her books.
And she talked about real estate.
And the fact
agent,
that she owns at least one, if not more, Airbnbs, as well as
has a place in Florida, I guess. She's
doing very well for herself.
Yeah, at a very young age.
And I did notice on her, I am Facebook friends with her, even though I only met her, I think I met her one time before she was in the basement. But she has done a number of podcasts since she was on Ours.
Okay.
So, Ours was her first, but then she went on to bigger claims to fame and went on other podcasts. So, that was all right. But she got some practice in here in the basement. And but a very, I would say, if nothing else, very disciplined young woman.
Yes.
Then we moved on to episode 12, David Hayne, who also wrote actually a couple books. We got two of them here. Now he did donate them to the cause because they had been published for a while, and he's another one that I really only met at a trivia venue of mine about 2 weeks before he came on the podcast. As it turns out, he is when I say this, I literally mean a world-renowned addiction counselor. In fact, right after he was on the podcast, he was heading back over to South Africa to counsel addicts. And he does that around the world as well as here in the United States. He has these 2 books. I think he also has another book or 2.
Does,
and but yeah, he like I say, I really spoke about 10 words to the gentleman before he came in the basement, and then we found out he leads a very interesting life.
Yeah,
a very brave soul, a very you know, hats off to him for doing what he does and doing it very well. And again, I'm not 100% sure if he's. I would assume by now he's back from Africa, but I don't know how long I haven't seen him at trivia since. So maybe he's still in South Africa, but he was very interesting.
A lot of good stories on his adventures on trying to help people away from the addiction.
You know, and it's when he goes and does this stuff, it's basically he puts his life on the line.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, he was very interesting
and has been doing it for a very, very long time.
30 some years at least.
And
then it was just me and Paul in episode 13. Episode 14, we had now we both know Rebecca very well. Rebecca Gallagher, owner of the historic Smithton and the Weathered Vineyards tasting room just up the street from the studio here.
Yeah,
she came on and explained a little bit about the bed and breakfast and the process of them buying it, and the fixing up they had to do, and
the history of that building.
Right.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And again, I live right down the street. Didn't really know much of anything. I mean, I knew it was an old building, but other than that, I didn't know a lot of what went on there or what it was before they owned it. And she also, we didn't spend a ton of time on the bed and breakfast. We talked a little bit about, she writes blogs for like tourists that come to her bed and breakfast, but also, she explained how even though we live around here, we never live around here as though we were a tourist.
Right.
And we miss a lot of things that, there's a lot of things within 10 miles of here that I've never done.
Right.
Because you just think, well, why do I need to go do that? I live here, you know. And Paul, I'll let him tell you, but her husband also deals in the tourist industry.
Yeah.
So tell him about your scooter ride.
The scooters. He works for a scooter company where they do tours out of Ronks area and Strasbourg, and he leads a tour of, X amount of people, and they all get their own scooters, and he has several destinations throughout the countryside.
And Paul went on one.
Yeah, my wife and I went, and we had a blast. That was a lot of fun.
And you got to go, they took you to places locally there that you've never been at.
Absolutely. There's a place in New Holland that makes popcorn that was, oh my. They had like 100 different kinds of popcorn. It was really neat. And all these little farms, and they had these, little shops in the farms, and that was amazing. He took us to one that he shoes horses.
Okay.
So he's a blacksmith.
He's a farrier.
Is that what? Oh, okay.
He's probably a blacksmith, but when you shoe horses, you're a farrier.
Okay. Did not know
that.
We met that gentleman. The Amish guy that did it old school, and that was really neat. So, Dave does the.
And you went to Kitchen Kettle Village? Didn't you go there?
We did. That wasn't part of the scooter.
Oh, okay.
But that was.
All right. Because you shouldn't be drunk on the scooter.
No. No. That wasn't part of the thing. But you talk about places that you driven by there.
Yeah, I've never went in it.
Tons of times and never actually went in there.
Yeah.
And we were with them on a camping week and this spring, and we went in there, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've never been.
As much as you are definitely in the middle of all these tourists, but everybody caters to you there, and it's very nice.
Yeah.
And we did a wine tasting, and it was very cool.
Yeah. But there is she was good at the point of, pick a weekend and be a tourist in your own town, basically.
Yep.
Then we had episode 15. And out of any of our guests, I would have said this would have been our least likely to ever come in my basement and appear on a podcast. But he did, and he did a damn good job.
Yeah.
The bar manager from Black Forest, who we'll see later today, assuming he's working, Eric Sears came down, and I told him, when he comes on, we're not, I mean, he was on a WEEU, I think, radio podcast talking about beer.
Oh, yes.
Him and Reese were on a thing with the Beer Busters, whatever the podcast is. So I told him, when he comes on here, we're not talking beer. You know, we want to, we know Eric, the bar manager. We want to know Eric, the person.
Right.
And so we talked a lot about his childhood, his college, his military. He did serve in the military and the Marines. I don't know, maybe there's a lot of people out there that go to Black Forest that don't even know that. So we found out a lot about Eric as a person as opposed to a bar manager. I will say I knew most of what we talked about because in the early days of Friday lunches at Black Forest, when hardly anybody knew they were open at lunch on a Friday, a lot of times it was me and Eric, and we bonded.
Yeah, there you go.
Now we just make fun of each other. But no, he's a good guy. And
I learned a lot in that episode. That was, his thoughts on Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And that whole war that's happening right now, was to hear his thoughts on that was very enlightening.
I suppose that's the mentality of if you were in the military, and because you had to justify why you were anywhere you're getting sent. Right. I mean, if you couldn't do that in your own mind, it would probably, not that it's not horrible to begin with that you get sent over there, but if you can't justify why are you there and what good are you actually trying to gain from this, it would even be worse. So, he was good at that. I mean,
he was very good.
When he explained it, I understood it because going in, I just thought, why do we even get involved in this kind of stuff? Right. But he sort of answered that, and I understood where he was coming from. But
and kind of the same thing with Ukraine. That everything.
There's
a lot of similarities.
You got to look past the current day situation as to what might occur depending on the outcome of it. And how it would affect us here.
Yes.
Right now there may be something to do with the economy, but it's not affecting our day-to-day life, but it could. Yeah. It could.
Yeah.
He was very informative in that fact. Like I say, there's a lot more to Eric than bartending. I will say that. Then we had the one episode that Paul was probably a little scared of. Yeah. We had Andrea Keith on, and she also is a realtor, but we really didn't talk realty. She actually picked her topic, and everybody can pick your topic. We don't assign your topics, but she came on and wanted to talk transhumanism, which has nothing to do with gender. It basically has to do with the difference between a human and a machine and artificial intelligence. And at what point does repairing a human body using technology turn a human into a machine? And we got into some different stuff, and it was very interesting. She was one of my favorite guests because that's the kind of stuff I like to talk about.
Yeah, and you guys got kind of deep.
We did a little bit.
And that was okay. And that was fun to listen to.
I think her main thing was once I got into the Bible questions, because she has her own faith, and some of my Bible things I think about, like, it's not that I don't believe the Bible, but I believe the Bible and more. And so, but as far as why she came on, she was very knowledgeable in that, and it led to a great discussion. The whole time was a great discussion. Paul, was that the one where you needed to drink, or was that because we were still out there when she was there.
Okay. No, that's coming up.
But anyway, Andrea, like I say, one of my favorite discussions, because it's not easy to find people who want to sit down and talk about that kind of stuff. It scares them. I don't know why, but it does. All right, and then I'm going to let Paul introduce and talk about number 17, because he recruited this lady.
So Elizabeth from the historic cloister. That was I love the effort of history, and she was more than willing to come in and explain the history of Conrad Beisel and how he started the community and basically how Ephrata got started.
Yeah.
How they lived, how big the community was and how it grew and what happened when he passed, who took over next, and how they lived. Right. What they made, how they got through the winters.
What they found digging on the site.
Yeah, what they found digging on the site when the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
And how they became a hospital.
Right, yeah.
And there was so much knowledge that she had.
Yeah, she was interesting.
That was really good.
And that, there again, that's always wondered me how a society that was supposed to be celibate expected to continue on. Yeah, right. But she explained that when, Conrad Beisel himself expected the world to end.
Yes.
Like he expected the second coming to happen while he was still living.
Right.
So they didn't look, their goal was never to keep their religion going for hundreds and hundreds of years because they fully believed that it wasn't going to make it till they died.
No.
And obviously that didn't pan out, but that's why they weren't looking at procreating to keep their movement going because they thought everybody on earth is going to be done by that time. Yeah. So, but it was, very interesting. And again, a very local, within walking distance of here, that again, I've been there, but she had a lot more to offer, I think, here one-on-one than what you get if you go for a tour there. Yeah. And, we were able to ask her questions. And so if you're interested in the Ephrata Cloister and what it really is about, episode 17, take a look at it.
And I think that's kind of where some of the haunting
there was
started.
We
started
she
talking
mentioned
about
some of that. And,
some ghosts,
whatnot. And she claimed that, there is before she sets an alarm, she has to say goodbye to something there where she's not able to set the alarm.
And something, and interestingly, as we progress through the time that we have in different places that we go, that we do hear, and a lot of times, or you prompt the question to the waitress, and there's almost always a story.
Yeah.
Of something that really odd. That
it was
happened,
a weird one last night. Somebody claimed to have seen, and I'm not going to even call it the spirit of the guy, but a guy that was a cook at the Legion, but hadn't worked there for a while.
Right.
Wasn't there, but somebody claimed to have seen him in the stairway or somewhere in the building, in the hallway.
Yeah.
But the guy hadn't passed away. Like he was fully alive, just wasn't on the premises. So I don't even know what you call that. It wasn't like
a doppelganger.
There was Dave.
Dave said that. Yes.
It's really not your ghost because you didn't give up your ghost.
No, right? Yeah, you didn't give up the ghost.
So that was a first.
That's kind of where that started with her.
As much as people. Like it takes somebody to bring it up, and once you do, then people.
Yeah.
But I think everybody's afraid to be the person that brings up something like that.
Yeah.
So I usually
you and I usually have a problem.
So then we moved on to number 18 episode, and we had Blake Hillard, a musician, and he was the first and at this point the only person that has actually brought an instrument and played a song.
That was cool.
Yeah. So he was our first musical guest, and he's a very interesting guy. And I know Blake, I know his mom, his dad, but I didn't know all the stories he had of when he went to college at Berkeley and lived in New York, and how even if you're playing as part of studio bands for even big artists, or even on tour with big artists, and he has been. Life is not a bowl of cherries. The big name people might get the creature comforts and the money. Yeah. The people just traveling with them and playing as fill-ins, I guess you'd call them, really don't live a luxurious life.
No, and pretty dangerous. See, he was explaining some of the areas that he was, and it was pretty dangerous.
But now he moved back home. Actually a number of years ago, and has established himself as a local, he gets booked at a lot of local venues.
Good singer.
He's a good singer. Plays trumpet, plays drum, plays guitar, plays I don't know what else, but he's not a just one instrument guy. He can pretty much take care of anything. He also has one trivia gig at Loxley's, and I told him he better just stay there and
right
there. I'm not out looking to replace him playing an instrument singing. He just better monitor his trivia.
Well, he said too. He's like, no music.
He actually, I will say, I'm gonna be on vacation. I won't miss any podcasts, but I will miss a couple trivias in the middle of September, and he is going to fill in for me at Whacker. He did that last year when we went to Nashville, and he's going to do it again this year. And he does well, and he's a good guy. But yeah, he was the first musician, and he actually played music.
And he had Jameson.
He brought Jameson. He did supply us with that. So, he's welcome back anytime.
Yeah.
Then it was 19. Anna Ruth Frisbee Diller Martin, I think. She has a bunch of, I'm going to look up to make sure, but she has a bunch of last names.
She does. She collects them.
Yeah, she's definitely had more last names than any of her guests.
Yeah.
And this was, this first episode with her, number 19, she was on once, and then you'll find she was our first guest to be on two different days.
Yeah.
The first time she came on, her main reason for coming on was she suffers, and I couldn't even probably say the name, but a very rare autoimmune disease, one in not many people in the country. And she found out she had issues for a while and wasn't able to be diagnosed, and finally got a real diagnosis.
Yep.
And since then has become part of some, what do they call it?
A test type of...
it's got a name. Experimental medicine, maybe. Clinical trial kind of thing. And she welcomes that because, her whatever the illness is debilitating, is something that gradually progresses. And not that it apparently at this point is terminal near future, but down the line her life may be cut short because of it. So she's more than willing to participate in these clinical trials in hopes that she helps herself first and foremost, I think, and then also she might be able to help many other people down the line.
And if it is something that is hereditary, then
possibly her own kids.
Right, she could possibly help her own kids.
Oh no, it's Anna Ruth Frisbee Diller Landis. I don't know why I couldn't remember John's last name. I thought it was Martin because just the way he talks, I thought he's a Martin. But he's a Landis. Which has a whole different accent. He's quite a character himself.
He's a good guy.
But her first episode, we talked a lot about that, a little bit about her job as a sales rep for some industrial, mechanical kind of things, and
talked about her, her upbringing.
And she was I think she was homeschooled for part of her life, she said. And had, not the easiest of upbringings.
No, and her family was big into the Ephrata area with D&E and Blue Ridge and engineering background.
Her grandpa was a famous D&E and I guess a famous collection of radios. Like one of the biggest or best collections in the world, probably. So she had local ties to the old D&E, and then with her first husband, she went on the road in like a military wife. Lived a number of places, and eventually made her way back here, and now lives again within a couple blocks of here. So, but that was her reasoning for coming on the first time she was on, and it was very interesting. And again, I know her from trivia, but I didn't necessarily know
the history and everything.
Her history, her illness, all that kind of stuff.
And once again, everybody has a story, and she had a very interesting story. So many things.
And then we went to episode 20, and Paul recruited these girls. Every now and then we see them at lunch at Black Forest, and we sort of, we know them well enough to know what they do for a career and that. And I'll let Paul tell a little bit about how he recruited them. And
animal
vet techs.
Vet techs. And
emergency vet techs,
yeah,
I think is what they are.
And so many people have animals, and they deal with them every day that they're at work, and they love animals. And to hear, what their struggles were within their job.
Right, because they're like in a hospital for an animal.
It really is.
I mean, they don't see the animals when they're doing well and happy and whatever.
No, they're, So, and I'm sure there's a lot of sadness there when they,
Well, and we talked about that how some people, their animal is their life.
Yeah.
And they tend to go the extra mile when it comes to spending money and doing what they can to save their animal.
Yeah.
Again, I don't hate animals. I have a dog, and he's peacefully resting upstairs. but I'm not a huge animal fan. But some people are.
Yeah,
and,
a lot are.
Actually, way more than are not.
Yeah,
and like I say, I don't hate animals. I don't abuse animals. I really sort of like animals. I just don't necessarily like owning an animal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I get it.
Because there's a responsibility with that. And
that's right. You held the sheep the one time.
I held a sheep. I made very good friends with a feral cat at Whacker. That comes out every trivia night and rubs against my leg, lets me hold it. So I like animals seem to like me better than I like animals. But I do, I don't mind petting a dog now and then. I just don't want to own one.
So them two, it was really good to hear their story. They were like best friends.
Yeah, from college.
Lived together, and just the chemistry between the two of them is really cool.
Yeah.
They really like lean on each other, and they just pick each other up, and so becoming what they are now, and the schooling that they went through.
And still, I guess, have to do continuing kind of thing. Yeah.
It was really interesting to hear.
Yeah, and these are not, I mean, these girls are, I don't know if they're even 30. I mean, I mean, maybe getting close, maybe, but they're young. I mean,
they're young.
But they've done a lot. I mean, and they're very, very fun. I mean, they are a blast.
It was fun to have them on, hear their stories.
Yeah, and just,
and they learned something about each other too when we were talking about like the instruments. And,
They didn't really know exactly. They both played instruments, but they really didn't know everything, the ins and outs of everybody's history with that.
Yeah.
And
that
was good. Yeah, they were fun. And then episode 21, Anna Ruth Frisbee Diller Landis came back on, and that was sort of we didn't have a guest lined up for that week, and she normally, her and her husband are at Thursday night trivia, and we still on Thursday night really didn't have a guest lined up for the next morning, and basically her husband said, well, you're not doing nothing tomorrow, how are you going to be on again? And so she did, and gratefully so, because then we had a guest. And the second time around, we really just talked about, well, it actually got into a deeper discussion than the Andrea Keith transhumanism discussion, and that's the episode Paul had to have a drink.
Yeah, that one got pretty.
And it was his own fault. He instigated the start of it. He mentioned he was on a cemetery committee.
Yes.
And then it went from cemetery till she brought up about ghosts, and then it went from one thing to another.
Yeah.
And I found out that honestly, and again, I would have never known this except she was right here in my basement, and she is probably deeper than me almost in some of the stuff. Like we talked about ghosts. We talked about the heck else. She even subscribed to the fact that she, for a while, considered maybe the Earth was flat.
Oh yeah,
and I'm not a flat earther, but I'm fine with somebody's opinion. And we talked about math and like how did you got all these mathematical formulas, but they were just invented. Like somebody came up with the idea, and how do any of us really know? This formula proves that. Well, maybe you just created the formula so it looked like it proved that.
I think that's probably what put me over the
edge. And then if the universe was our entire universe was in a big cube with mirrors on the inside, it would look much bigger than it really does. And that's why we think it's infinite, and it's really not. And it really went, but it was very interesting to find out that right up the street, I got another partner. If I ever need to talk about that kind of stuff, she's in my corner. Unfortunate thing.
I still believe that the world is round, though.
I believe that too. I am still not sold on the fact if we really landed on the moon or not. I'm 50-50 on that. But
and that was Andrea too that said.
She
was like, did we really land on the moon?
And how do you know? I mean, I wasn't on that spaceship. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But the unfortunate thing about Aunt Ruth's second appearance was that one time that we ran into some sort of video glitch.
Oh, yes.
Now, fortunately, unfortunately, we got all the the paranormal talk out, and then the end of what would have been the end of the video, which didn't get recorded because she noticed on the screen we weren't moving, and but it was unfortunate because the end of that was she was telling a lot about her daughter and her daughter's dance recital team and how well they were doing, and just a ragtag group of girls in Mannheim that ended up going to a world competition in New Jersey against these teams that practice together year round from little on up, and they didn't win the competition, but they did their best routine ever at the competition. And so she was telling a lot about that, and it was very interesting, and she was very proud of her daughter. And unfortunately, nobody got to see that because that was the 10-15 minutes that we lost that we didn't know we were losing. So we'll have her back on again, and we'll make sure we start the conversation with that and let her rehash what that was.
Yeah. I mean, it was very interesting.
Oh, it was. And they put a lot of work into that, and then we had episode 22, a good friend of mine since high school, basically, the Reverend Bradley Hawes. And again, all these people, we don't twist their arm to come on. Everybody has approached us, or maybe if we just said to them, hey, are you interested? They agree. It's not like we poke and prod. No. If you don't want to be on, you don't have to be on. But he wanted to come on. He was on vacation the week he came on. And, we talked a little bit about old memories in Reinhold's when we were friends, talked a little bit about the Bible. We talked, talked about, it wasn't like he wasn't here to preach. In fact, he cited a number of faults with churches and how they're cliquey and how, some of the challenges of being, and the other thing he spoke of, and he's very, very interested, does a lot of work with hospice.
Yes.
And so we talked a little bit more about hospice than a Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning sermon, and how, he deals with death, on a maybe not daily basis, but very often. And, he's another one where, I asked a couple Bible questions, and, he explained why in our culture Jesus is a white dude with long hair, where in maybe an African country he's not.
Yeah.
And, we sort of, it was always said God created us in his image, and I think we created Jesus in our image, whatever that image is, to fit the culture you live in and the color of your skin and whatever. And that's fine. Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is be like Jesus. Whatever he looks like, that's not a point. Yeah. But anyway, he was very interesting. I'd like to have him on again. And I would like to have him on at some point after he no longer has pastoral duties because a little more freedom and we could get a little deep too. But it was interesting to find out how he was moved to be a pastor early on in life. Yeah. I think he said in middle school. But anyway, he was an old friend, so that I knew pretty much everything we talked about. But then we moved on to
before you jump past that. While you're talking about Brad.
Oh yeah.
In October.
Yes, and I actually in October 22nd, Saturday, starting at 11 till the food runs out. Me and a bunch of volunteers basically are going to put on a free food giveaway at Brad's Church, the Round Church in Denver, St. John's UCC. It's going to be a drive-through, pulled pork, macaroni salad, and a dessert, I think, at this point. I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can for the first go-round. But I did actually just talk to Side Catering today, this morning, just checking back in. The pork will be good to go. I'm going to pick it up 8:30 that Saturday morning. They're going to put it in. It's going to be in 9 tinfoil pans, and they were gracious enough. I'm paying for the pork, but they gave me a good price, and they mentioned today that they will put each pan in what they refer to as a hot box. Oh. So it's going to stay warm till we dish it out. Yep. So I thanked them for that, because that was, I don't know how long it's going to take to dish out, but I want to get dished out before cars start showing up. Yeah. But anyway, keep that in mind. Yes. And Brad's Church, between him and the board at the church, whatever you call them,
council,
they agreed to let us use the kitchen area,
facility there,
just if for nothing else. Yeah, the parking lot to drive through. It's a handy place to drive through because it's got an entrance on one side and an exit on the other. And if you're interested in coming, it's open to anybody. Originally it was, I want to help out those in need, but you don't have to bring your income tax form. You just show up. It's 6 meals per car. So that is October 22nd. But I do thank their church there for allowing us to do what we're doing there. Then we got episode 23. Another guy that we basically got to know at Black Forest. Mark Cromer, artist. And I'll let Paul talk about it, because Paul himself was an aspiring artist. Yeah, he brought a piece of his artwork to that podcast.
Mark, is a very, very talented artist, and pencil drawings.
That's his.
And his detail is just amazing. His detail and his pictures are fantastic. He does requests. If you
in fact, I just saw yesterday and he posted a new dog picture he was making.
And that looked great. Yeah. So, and he does it as a part-time thing.
Yeah.
And it's something it's
a passion. Yeah. I think honestly, like he talked about, it takes so long to make a drawing that it's hard to have that be your only source of income. Yeah. Or he'd have to charge.
Yes. Yeah,
$500,000 for a drawing.
Right. Yeah.
But I think deep down he would like to do it as a profession, and I wished he could.
Yeah. But he really brought an interesting twist to it that I didn't really realize, was that he really feels passionate about each and everything that he is doing.
Right.
So if he's doing this drawing, he has to be in the right mindset.
Yeah.
He can't just, okay, it's 8 o'clock, it's time to go draw.
Right.
No, it's got to inspire him to go do that. And that, I think, is what really makes somebody very good.
Right.
And when it comes to that, like you.
And I think that's, when you're that passionate about it, it's hard to make it your living, because once you are depending on that to buy your next meal, you're going to lose. All you're interested in is getting it done.
Yeah.
And getting paid so you can eat next week.
Right.
Yeah. So you lose a little bit of your passion if you're trying to work more on piece rate kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, he's very, very good. He did bring a couple of samples that are finished drawings along.
Right.
And we were fortunate at Black Forest the one day to also see another one of his finished drawing, the dogs he did for Eric and Megan. Very good at what he does.
Yeah. I didn't realize that he actually will take some of the pictures himself. Like if it's a portrait, like he would set somebody up in a studio
and do his own photos.
Take a picture of them, and then go from there.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it.
No, I thought maybe you just hand him a picture.
Yeah,
Here, I want this.
If he can't do what you would put in front of him. You're like, okay, well, that's not quite going to work. And he can do a picture himself of what he needs to do. So that was interesting there. Yeah.
No, very good, very interesting guy. He also brought a concoction of drink.
He did.
It was some sort of espresso something or the other. But it had, I think, but that might have been Jameson. It was some kind of whiskey or something.
I think it was.
And it was really good.
It was.
It was. He said it was some sort of sweet, salty kind of espresso mix. Yeah. It was good. It was good. Yeah. He only brought a limited supply. I could have used another one. But it was really, really tasty.
It was very good.
And then finally, our one last week, our podcast, episode 24 last week. And again, this was a guy that reached out. I never knew this guy existed, honestly. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but he reached out to me. We weren't even Facebook friends. He apparently, to some degree, knew Hannah Horst from episode 20. Must have somehow, because of her, realized we do this podcast. Reached out and asked if he could be on. And like I say, that's all you got to do.
Yeah.
And he came on last week with like less than a week notice, really.
Yeah.
I'll let Paul talk about his book. He's the third author we had on here.
Yeah, right. He wrote a book on his life, and he goes to China, I'd say 3/4 of the year, and has been doing this for the last 8 years, I believe he said.
13 maybe.
Oh, it might be
13, I believe.
Yeah, it might be 13. And he will teach, say, college level kids, I guess some high school at that age. He will teach English to the Chinese students.
He made mention of he teaches English as a foreign language, which is a little, he said the difference is English as a foreign language, all your students in your class speak the same native language. And then English as a second language, if you teach that, like here in the United States, you're teaching English to maybe one person whose native tongue is Spanish, and the next one might be Chinese, and the next one might be Russian. So there is a difference between that, according to him. I mean,
and he's teaching students from, I say that it's done in China, but I don't think that they're all. It was more of a college atmosphere. Like they're coming from all over.
Right. It wasn't
like a high school where it's just that area right there.
Yeah.
He's getting
some university, whatever college level, but
So he talked about how what it's like to live there, what it's like to teach there. He talked about a little bit about the politics.
And he does want to come back and sort of give the lowdown on what it's really like, as opposed to what we're told it's like.
Right.
He also said he used to hate Chinese food till he went to China and got to taste real Chinese food, and now he loves it.
He loves it.
The most interesting thing about the gentleman, he went to Messiah College. He actually graduated from Ephrata High School. Also lives just down the road. But like I say, I didn't know the guy existed. But in addition to doing all he did, going to Messiah College, getting a master's, going to China, he was born legally blind. And not, I mean, this isn't like belittling his condition, but I honestly, if he wouldn't have told me what he was prior to coming here, when he got dropped off. But other than that, from the time he walked in my house, down the basement steps, came over here, he handles it well.
Oh yeah.
I would have not known he was legally blind.
Right.
Now he said
he's very cautious on what he's where he walks.
Right.
And how he's very cautious.
But he walked down the steps like everybody else.
Yeah.
And he could see the cord on the floor, which I warn everybody about.
Right.
We don't have one today because we're not hooked up.
That's right. Yeah.
But anyway,
then he explained how it's the more of the contrast. If there's different colors, he can see it better than all one color. He gave an example as a kid when he was mowing the lawn. He actually would have to stop and go feel the grass to see where it was cut and where it wasn't, because he couldn't see
high grass and low grass.
Right. So his eyesight was diminished to the point where it did affect him tremendously.
Yes.
When it comes to that, But he obviously has.
He has overcome it.
He definitely has made strides.
He said he can read, but he has to hold the book real close to him. But yeah, I mean, and look at all. I mean, he had what I'm going to call a handicap, and he's done a ton with his life.
Oh yeah.
And he was very interesting. And like I say, when he walked in this house, I knew nothing about him other than a little bit of research on Facebook I did after he asked to be on the podcast. And now we found out we had a lot in common. We even have a couple common friends that he did weightlifting and I used to power lift. And we had after the interview on the podcast, we found out we know some of the same people through powerlifting. But yeah, so very, very interesting. And that is the first 25 episodes.
Yeah.
Like I say, out of 25, we had 18 with a guest. Hopefully our next 25 will be even at least that many. Like he said, we have a couple people in the works. Nobody committed to any particular date other than when we're going to Maple Grove in a couple weeks on September 16th. And I'm not sure, again, that won't be a live broadcast. It'll be much like today's where we'll record it and dump it down afterwards. Next week, if we have a guest, we'll be live from the basement here. So that is a wrap-up of the first 25.
Yeah, who would have guessed?
Retro bar. Yeah, who would have guessed we... Yeah. I don't think we missed a week. You missed 1 week because of vacation, but I filled in with Alexa. And when I go away, I'm not going to be away on a Friday. So as long as we can keep getting guests, don't be scared. It's very informal. You don't have to bring notes. You don't have to bring a topic. You can, but you don't have to.
No pressure. And
no pressure at all.
It could be 20 minutes long.
If you don't bring your own drink and in the middle you decide you need one, we'll turn around and get you one. All right, we're going to cut it off there, and we'll see you hopefully next week with a guest, and we'll be back here either way.
There you go. Have a great day.
Yep.